Welcome everyone. We'll be getting the webinar started in approximately 4 minutes. Thank you very much for joining, and we'll be starting momentarily. Thank you. Good morning. We'll be getting the webinar started in a few minutes. Take this moment to familiarize yourself with the control panel, particularly the chat feature in the lower portion of the control panel. We'll be taking questions this way, so feel free throughout the webinar to type questions in there, and I will answer as many of them I can at the end of the webinar. Again, thanks for attending, and we'll be getting started momentarily. Welcome again to all those that have joined the webinar. I've got approximately 1 minute to go until we'll be getting things started. So make yourself comfortable, and we'll begin in just a moment. Thank you. Welcome everybody to today's webinar. Before we get started, I'm going to do a couple of quick housekeeping items for us. We're going to be taking questions for this webinar through the chat box feature that you can find on the lower portion of your control panel. So feel free throughout the presentation to enter your questions where it says type message here, and then send them, and I will review and answer as many of those questions as we can at the end of the webinar. I do have everybody muted, So unfortunately, just for the convenience of everybody participating and to avoid distractions, you won't be able to ask your questions directly, but I will get to as many questions as I can. So with that, we'll begin today's webinar. It's implementing SystemEdge solutions for hurricane recovery and mitigation. My name is Brian Lawrence. I'm the Director of Sales for North America. So today we're going to cover a couple of different topics. First, we're going to cover the difference between the most popular type of solutions you can use for hurricane recovery, mitigation, and preparedness. First being grid tie plus battery backup. And then we are going to also cover off-grid solutions for a little bit more permanent type of situations, such as being experienced right now, unfortunately, in Puerto Rico. And then the next half of the webinar is going to talk and we're going to go into detail about our SystemEdge pre-engineered power solutions. We have solutions for both grid tie battery backup as well as off-grid. We'll go into these systems in greater detail, and they really can help quickly and easily get folks into the right power system, whether it's for short duration outages or for longer duration outages. So as we begin, I think most people are probably familiar with this type of renewable energy system. It's the most common for residential and light commercial applications, and this is your grid direct system where you have a PV array that feeds directly into a grid tied inverter. This could be a micro inverter that actually is right on or next to the PV panels themselves, or it could be like is depicted in this slide with a grid tied inverter, string inverter with the long high voltage strings of panels feeding directly into the inverter, which then goes into a main service panel offsetting customers' loads, and any excess power is pushed out through the utility meter and onto the utility grid. These systems are extremely popular, very simple, great for when the grid is up. Unfortunately, the weakness of these systems, and I think unfortunately a lot of people may have found out the hard way, that these particular systems don't work when the utility grid is out. And that's just the inherent way that the system works. They're actually required to island from the utility grid in the event of a power outage. So even though the system may be intact and the sun may be shining, these systems just unfortunately do not allow for power production when the utility grid is down. So it's not really helping much in the situations that we've seen recently in the southeast US and the Caribbean islands. So the solution to this problem is to add energy storage to the equation. There's a couple ways. There's a third way, AC coupling, which is adding a battery backup inverter to a grid-tied system. We're not going to cover that today, but that is another option and perhaps a topic for another future webinar. But we're going to focus on the two applications I mentioned earlier, grid tie plus battery backup, and then we're going to talk about off-grid solutions as well, so pure off-grid. So how do those look in more of a block diagram format? First is grid tie plus battery backup. So we've got our PV array. Unlike our previous slide, we have a few more devices, a few more components in this part of the diagram. PV panels are not connecting directly to the inverter. They work through a charge controller, and the function of the charge controller is to convert this higher voltage DC from the PV array, optimize it for battery charging at the right system voltage. Typically 24 or 48 volts is the most common. There are a lot of 12-volt systems out there, particularly smaller systems, and more recently there's some higher voltage systems as well, operating up in the 400-volt range. But by far and away, the vast majority of grid tie plus battery backup systems on the market today are operating at either 24 or 48 volts. Why these systems are oftentimes referred to as DC coupled is because you've got battery charging sources, solar PV array charge controllers. You may even have a wind turbine that's charging batteries or a micro hydro that's charging batteries. And then also connected to the same DC battery bank is your inverter. And the function of the battery-based inverter in this type of system is to invert that DC battery into AC power so that you can operate loads that are either on a backed up load panel, which is really a requirement for a grid tie plus battery backup system. You still have a connection to your main service panel. So like the grid tie diagram before, you're still able to offset loads in the home and net meter, if your utility allows that, or export excess power off to the grid. Doing the same function when the utility grid is up as a grid tied system. But the benefit of this system is when the grid is disconnected, you can continue to use your PV and a generator if you want. It's very easy to integrate a generator with OutBack systems to power anything connected to your backed up load panel. So this could be anything the customer desires. It all depends on the customer's budget and the size of the PV array, the size of the batteries, the size of the inverter in the system, as well as the size of the generator. But most common for a grid tie battery backup system would be your most common backed up loads would be a refrigerator, freezer, keep your food from spoiling. If you live in a northern climate, you may keep your furnace blower and electronics functional. If you've got gas heating to allow you to continue to heat your home. A popular one is a garage door opener so that you can get your car in and out of the garage. Keeping some lights on and then keeping a few circuits energized for keeping your computer up and running so you can monitor what's going on with the storm and keep your cell phone charged up, that type of thing. So that can be very easily done. This is intended for more short duration type of backup loads where you may be losing power for 6 to 12 hours. But the nice thing with this system is if you have it connected to a PV array is that when the sun comes up the next day, you're able to recharge your batteries and then basically go on indefinitely so long as you've got relatively good sun and your loads aren't too excessive. This system will allow you to continue on for an extended period, days, weeks, even months. If you are going through a situation like the poor folks in Puerto Rico and some of the other islands are, where you're in a situation where there is no utility grid anymore, and there may not be for some time, these folks are going to be operating more in kind of an off-grid environment, where you're going to rely exclusively on the PV production and a generator or some other type of renewable production. Maybe wind's a viable option in some locations. Everything else is pretty much the same. We've lost this sub-panel because now the inverter is going to need to provide everything. In the case of a home that maybe previously was connected to the grid, some of these loads, perhaps maybe a pool heater or something that isn't quite as important as some other loads, if the loads in the main panel exceed what the inverter can supply, it may be necessary to turn off a few breakers so that you don't have issues where the inverter gets overloaded from the loads in the customer's home. But there's also some cool things we can do with having support modes where the generator and the inverter can work together in times when loads are a little higher as well. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the nice thing about these off-grid systems is they can be used temporarily to provide all the customer's power needs, and then at a future date, if once the grid is rebuilt and comes back online, our systems are very flexible, and they will allow customers at a later date when they can to go into a grid interactive mode and help support the grid export excess power on the grid, maybe to help with production of power in a microgrid type of environment. And that can be done simply by reprogramming the inverter when the utility can be connected up, and you operate more in a mode like we saw before. So you could quickly and easily convert this off-grid system into a grid tie plus battery backup system at a later date without requiring any additional hardware. So next thing we're going to talk a little bit about, now that we have hopefully a better understanding of what a grid tie plus battery backup system is and what a off-grid power system would look like, is going into some of the operating modes that OutBack has that helps make it a little easier for people to get up and running and for the inverter to do the job that they need it to do. The default mode for all of our OutBack equipment is our backup mode, and this is would be it's the right application for a grid tie battery backup system. So when grid tie is enabled, we're able to sell excess power to the utility, and the system operates just like that grid tied system we started the presentation with. But in times of a power outage, the system will quickly, and we're talking less than a cycle, so it's a quick enough transition from utility grid power outage to inverting energy stored in your batteries. That transition happens so quickly, you don't even, lights typically won't flitter. You won't see any, your computers won't lose data, your clocks will not need to be reset. There are some other solutions on the market now where that transition doesn't happen so quick. It can take several seconds to even longer in some cases, and you get a lot of nuisance issues where you are doing those things. You're resetting clocks. Certain things are, need to be reset because they've lost power for long enough that they can't continue to operate without some manual intervention. So it can be an inconvenience, and in some cases it can be a real hardship. So that's a nice feature with the OutBack being able to transfer so quickly. There's also a couple of other operating modes that can be extremely useful given the topic of this webinar. First, I'll talk a little bit about his generator, second from the bottom. This allows the inverter, widens the input tolerance of the inverter to accept power from maybe a little lower quality generator. I know generator availability on a lot of the islands is challenging. Some of the generators that are probably being used may not be as well maintained as ideally, or could be a light duty generator that's being used a little bit more frequently than it's intended, so the output quality of power is decreases rapidly. So this mode will allow generators or other AC sources that maybe aren't as ideal as we'd like to see. We allow that power to be used to charge batteries. So it's definitely could be a useful operating mode in this application. The other mode is support. This again could be a great example for what could be going on. Is if a small generator is available, we can use that generator and help supplement the power from that generator when needed. So if there's larger loads than the generator itself can handle, the inverter can take some battery power, sync up with that generator output, and start smaller or larger loads like pumps and motors that need a little bit more power to start that the generator can't do on their own, but with a little help from the inverter they can. So it allows you to, again, use a generator that may not be ideal, but it's available to help support the system. The last thing I'll talk to on this slide is flex time, and that's a feature within our product that allows you to use up to 3 different operating modes over a 24-hour period to even provide more functionality. So customer, you may use backup mode or one of the other modes, and then transition to a different mode at a later time in the day, support or generator mode, for example. So it just allows for additional flexibility to make sure that the system can provide the right power solution that the customer customers need. So a lot of you that are joining today that may be new to battery backup systems, you may be under the impression, or you've been told that battery backup systems are very complicated. And I would be not telling the entire truth if I said that there isn't a little bit of truth to that. In the past, there was a great deal of expertise required by the integrator or the installer to select all the various components that we can see on the screen: inverters, charge controllers, combiner boxes, batteries and battery racking, different controls and wiring boxes, and knowing what right components go together and how to size all of this and how to wire it all together did take some expertise. But thankfully, over the years, OutBack and our competitors out there have done a lot to take some of the mystery out of off-grid or battery-based power systems. So now they're not a heck of a lot different than what most of you that are new to battery-based systems are probably already familiar with. And we've come up with a couple of marketing names that we use to communicate some of this convenience that we're offering to the market. Those are Flex Power, which stands for a pre-wired, pre-engineered, factory-tested power system. So everything that used to be required for an installer to put together is now pre-wired for them, making it much easier. And then we combine our pre-wired power systems, and we'll talk about a little bit about those, with the right energy storage, combiner box, and communication and control systems. We bundle those all together under one part number, and we call those our SystemEdge, and that's what we're going to focus on for the second half of our presentation today. So going into a little more detail, so I think I covered some of this, but SystemEdge, these are pre-engineered systems, including your battery, your power system, which is a Flex Power system, again, this upper left corner, with the right storage and enclosure option, or excuse me, racking option, the right combiner box solution, and then control and monitoring, both through the on-site Mate 3S device and then the remote cloud-based optics control and monitoring. We'll cover that in a little bit more detail. It brings that all under one part number with an attractive package price, so it's cheaper to buy a SystemEdge bundle than it is to piece all of this product together. So it's you get a discount for buying it as all as one package as opposed to buying it piecemeal. So keeping with some of the changes that are ongoing in the industry, we've kept up with those changes as well, so that you don't have to worry about inspection of these systems. So included with all of the SystemEdge package is our ICS Plus combiner box, which provides for arc fault and rapid shutdown requirements. There's a combiner box that gets mounted up close to the array within 10 feet that integrates circuit protection with arc fault and interfaces with the rapid shutdown that's down by your meter. Allows us to disconnect power at both the PV array as well as down at the inverter end that's got some energy storage tied to it with the batteries. So we disconnect both ends of the circuit, making for very safe code compliant installation. So the takeaway from this slide is that if you order one of these SystemEdge, or if you go with the SystemEdge solution, you're going to be code compliant, and it's we're one of the few folks on the market that do offer a complete UL 1741 compliant solution. Before we get into the SystemEdge offerings in detail, we're also just going to cover a little bit of what our optics RE, which is included with all of our SystemEdge packages as well. This is a great option for folks that are able to connect to the internet. It's really designed around the installer, but it has tremendous benefits for the system owner as well, whether that's a home or a business owner. Allows them to quickly and easily see what's going on with their system, where power is flowing from generators, batteries, PV arrays. If their system's operating properly, they can do some basic monitoring. The installer, based on the capabilities of the system owner, can provide limited monitoring and control access to complete control access. For the installer, it allows for you to keep track of your customers' systems, notify you via email if there's a problem with any customer's system so that you can get ahead of things and know what's going on. Oftentimes before your customers even know that there's a problem. Allows you to remotely do anything you can on site with the mate controller. You can do remotely from the convenience of your office or your home office, and oftentimes preventing you from having to go out to the site yourself or send a technician to the site to make changes if for some reason the customer or something wasn't programmed correctly or the customer made some ill-advised changes to the system. You can change that remotely without having to go to the job site. So very powerful system, comes included, there's no monthly fee. It's a great service that we offer with the purchase of any of the OutBack equipment. So now we're going to go into SystemEdge packages. So this is a family of off-grid and grid-tied products. This kind of shows kind of a menu approach, and something that you could bring to a customer's location, or they could come and you could talk with them at your location. You can walk them through the full family of offering quickly and easily figure out based on how much load they have, what their budget is, using kind of rough size of the customer's home. We've given them names such as cabin, lodge, villa, townhouse, and suburban series to try and get you in the right ballpark very quickly with your customer to know what their power and energy requirements are. This will allow you to walk them into a system very quickly, talk some rough numbers from a price standpoint, make sure that the budget will allow for it. And then you can go into, once you know that you've got a pretty good idea of what the customer's needs and budget are, then you can go into some details and make sure it's it's worth your time and you're not delivering something that's way out of the customer's expectation. So this is a nice tool that helps you do just that. So now we'll kind of walk through each of these systems in a little more detail. So we've got the cabin series, the lodge, and the villa series. Those are really designed for these off-grid applications. Again, this is something that could readily be used in places right now that don't have a utility grid, and they may not have one for months or perhaps even longer. And then we've got a family of products for grid-type battery backup. And these would be great for places like Florida and Texas that have gone through storms that knock out power for hours or days, but the grid's pretty resilient or more resilient, and you're looking for backup power in hours and days as opposed to weeks and months. So we're going to start with our grid-type battery backup options. Our entry level or our smallest package there is our Townhome series. This is a 4 kilowatt flex power system built around our Radian inverter, which has dual AC inputs, so it makes it really easy, unlike some of our competitors' products, to integrate a generator safely and easily into the system for extended resiliency in the customer's power system. So if they are concerned about longer term outages and they have the ability to or have a generator or would like to add a generator system, very easy to do that. Pairs it up with 20 kilowatt hours of nameplate storage, which you can actually get more than 10 kilowatt hours out In a backup application, you can take these batteries to a deeper depth of discharge. We recommend 70 to 80% is acceptable in a battery backup application where you're having maybe a half dozen power outages in the course of a year. It's okay to hit those batteries pretty hard in that case. And these are our GH family of batteries, the orange batteries you see in the picture. These batteries are specifically designed for grid tie battery backup applications where they're most of the time being held at 100% stated charge, waiting for a power outage to happen. And then, like I said earlier, they can be discharged pretty heavily a few times in the year during a power outage and still give you lots of life. And by that I mean 10 plus years between battery changes. So very, very good system, or very good battery for this application, combined with the right combiner box solution that meets arc fault and rapid shutdown requirements, and optics RE. So this is a great solution for smaller townhomes, small homes, people just looking to back up the basics. Then moving up in size, we go to our Suburban series. This is our SE830GH. This is about 30 kilowatt hours of energy storage. We've got an 8 kilowatt inverter, so double the amount of loads that we can power. So this is our most popular grid-tied battery backup system for most homes, single-family homes. It gives you, I'll show you in this next slide, will allow you to power pretty much what folks are looking to power in an outage for 6 hours. So it would get you through the evening hours, and then again the sun would come up in the morning and charge up and allow you to go through another evening powering different loads. So this chart shows you have to get up to this point where you're running a fair amount of loads. You got 15 lighting circuits, you've got 3 TVs, you've got multiple refrigerators and freezers, a computer, you even got some electric space heaters to keep people warm if that's a requirement. So you have to get up to that before the 420GH is no longer recommended. So of course this would allow you to probably even operate some more load as well. So this chart, along with the menu that we saw previously, these two pieces are great sales tools to help you work with your customers and quickly and easily get them into the right grid tie battery backup system that they need to meet their objectives in a power outage. So now we're going to move into the off-grid packages that we offer. And again, these would be for applications where there is no utility grid, or there won't be one for a while, so that the customer is on their own to provide power for at least the foreseeable future. So this starts with our cabin series. This is our lowest cost, our most cost-effective off-grid power system. It's built around our FlexPower 1 system, which is a 3.6 kW 120 volt output. So we're not able to operate 240 volt pumps or electric clothes dryers or electric ovens with this system. We're going to be able to operate lights, refrigerators, computers, charge cell phones, etc. It's got 20 kilowatt hours of storage. Those of you that have a good visual memory will see that instead of the batteries being orange in color, they're now gray. That means these are a different type of battery we're incorporating in the system. It's our 200 NC. NC is short for Nano Carbon. These are a fantastic off-grid battery. They provide industry-leading cycle life at 3,000 cycles at a 50% depth of discharge. So they are a very good off-grid battery that's going to give you 5 to 7 years of life being cycled on a daily basis, or even a few times on a day. Again, includes the combiner box and optics RE. So this is ideally for lighter loads, people looking to just keep the basics going, and that are, maybe it's a budget issue, suggested less solar panels, racking and installation, you're south of $14,000 for batteries, power system, combiner box, and other equipment. So this is a entry-level power system for off-grid. And then we move into our Lodge series. Big difference here, we've got 2 inverters, double the power at just over 7 kW. But here we do have 240 volt output, 120 and 240. So this can be used to run 240 volt well pumps or sump pumps, electric motors, other higher current devices. Other good examples are electric clothes dryers. They're often 240 volts, as well as electric ranges. So this is more for moderate loads. Much bigger battery bank. This is a 800 amp hour battery bank. So our 800 RE, it delivers around 20 kilowatts of useful energy. So fairly good sized system for keeping our residents going for a long duration off-grid type application. So we jump, this system almost doubles the price compared to what we saw previously. So we're going up in both energy storage, power output, and with that we're going up in system cost as well. So these are all suggested retail prices that we're seeing here. This system is very similar to the one previously. The difference here is we've gone to a slightly larger battery with more cycle life. So it's just an upgrade in the battery system here, give you more cycles, a little bit more energy. Instead of 20 kilowatt hours, we're up to just over 26 kilowatt hours of useful energy storage. So the next family of products for off-grid applications is our Villa series. First one is built around our 8 kilowatt Radian. This can accept up to 16 kilowatts of PV. We've got just around a 15 kilowatt hour battery bank of useful storage, 30 kilowatt hours nameplate, 120, 240. So again, we can power those 240 volt loads, a little bit larger, continuous loads that we can run with this system. Very popular. This is our most popular off-grid package that we currently have in the lineup. Very reasonable price point, good match for a lot of folks' applications out there. Moving up, again, this system is identical to the one previously with the exception of a 50 plus kilowatt hour battery bank, 26 usable, a little bit more storage, and a little bit larger price. And then the last product in this family is our Villa series. It's our SE-14130RE. The 14 or the 14 means it's a 14 kilowatt power system, actually 14.4 kW. The 130 is the size of the battery in amp hours at 100% nameplate. So this is a 130 kilowatt hour battery at 50% depth of discharge, which is our recommended depth of discharge for off-grid systems. You get just shy of 65 usable kilowatt hours. This would be for a very larger home, maybe a business or some sort of a government facility, maybe a police station, a fire station, etc., that's looking to provide power for a little bit larger building. So this is built around our FlexPower 4, which is 4 3.6 kW inverters, 2 on each leg, providing 120 on each leg combined for 240 volt loads. The right size combiner box, again, that's meets National Electrical Code, incorporating rapid shutdown and arc fault. It shows one of these boxes, but you actually get 4 of them, one for each charge controller. These are each capable. This is a 48 volt DC system, so each charge controller is up for 4K worth of solar. So this system can handle fairly good size array at 16 kW. So that is an overview of how you can use some of our packaged off-grid systems and our grid tie with battery backup systems to help your customers that are currently having issues and will be get some power, both short-term and long-term, and to help customers that maybe went through one of the recent hurricanes and realize that their system, or they're thinking of putting in the system, but they want to make sure that they're able to have power in an outage. You can use our family of grid tie plus battery backup systems for that application. So that's the end of the formal presentation. So I'll bring up the questions now, and we'll finish this webinar by answering any questions that people have. So one of the questions here is, do you have any package systems that are larger than the Villa system? And the answer is no. 14.4 kW is our largest pre-wired system, but we can do larger systems. We can go up to 80 kW in off-grid systems. That's combining up to 10. That's the maximum number of OutBack devices we can put together in a system. So we could do 10 of our 8 kilowatt radians to get us an 80 kilowatt system. So you could definitely work with OutBack partner, and we could help put together a larger system if 14.4 kW is not large enough for you. That's a good question. Thank you. So the next question is the largest RE battery bank 2700 amp hours and the Nano Carbon series 2200 amp hours? That is correct, but you can combine those batteries together. So we can parallel batteries. So if you need more than 2700 amp hours or 2200 amp hours, we can start paralleling battery banks together to get larger systems. So good question, thanks for asking. Next question is, what are the operating input limits of the charge controllers? Amps, volts, DC. So the answer to that question, we have a FlexMax 1680. The 60 is not included on any of these pre-wired systems. They're all built around our FlexMax 80 charge controller. That's an 80 amp charge controller. It is limited to 150 volts on the input. So with today's panels in the high 200s, low 300 range, you're doing strings of 3 modules. Oftentimes it could be 2 to keep you below the 150 volt limit when you're using the VOC from the panels. We are about to launch a new charge controller, our FlexMax 100. That's going to double the input voltage from 150 volts to 300, and we're going to start incorporating those into the SystemEdge and FlexMax packages early in 2018. So that's something you can look forward to that's going to help simplify OutBack installations and allow you to do longer strings going forward. Next question is, what are the advantages of the Nano Carbon versus the RE? And this particular customer has only used the RE batteries. So OutBack started offering batteries under the OutBack name about 3 or 4 years ago, and our first family of batteries was the RE battery. And it's a absorbed glass mat technology, which is a maintenance-free battery. There's 2 types, there's gel and AGM. We prefer AGM from a cost and performance standpoint. So they are they're an alloy, a lead alloy battery. So the alloy in a deep cycle battery helps with cycling. So they are a true deep cycle battery, the RE that is. And at 1800 cycles, it's still an extremely good battery compared to a lot of our competition on the market. But the Nano Carbon technology, which is exactly as the name sounds, it's a very fine carbon material that gets infused in the negative plate of the battery. And the benefits of this Nano Carbon material is it helps reduce sulfation within the battery. which lengthens the battery life. That's why we're allowed, or what allows us to get up to 44% more usable life out of the NC battery versus the RE. It also reduces the internal resistance within the battery, and the benefits of that are more of the renewable energy, that the PV energy is able to be converted with less loss and stored in the battery, and vice versa, taken out of the battery, and less of that energy is being wasted in the transition from chemical to, or from electrical to chemical and back the other direction. So the Nano Carbon battery is really a good advantage. It's a relatively small price premium over the RE, and you're getting almost double the cycle life. So it's a great technology improvement, and like all aspects of energy storage in the marketplace right now, there's lots of innovation going on, and batteries are getting better and cheaper all the time, which is going to help with all of these type of systems, both the grid-tied with energy storage plus the off-grid applications that we still see a strong demand for. So our next question is, which is more efficient, to make strings of 2 or 3 or 4 panels on the charge controller? From an efficiency standpoint, there's really not a lot to be gained, but it really comes down to if you put too much voltage into the charger, you're actually going to damage it. So it's really important that you make sure that you're keeping your strings under the 150 volt charge limit, and that all depends on the specific specs of the panel. And we do have some tools available to help with that. We've got a great system sizing tool. We've offered several webinars on that and offered that tool for people that participate. There's recorded versions of that on our YouTube channel, so I encourage you, if you're interested, to review our system sizing tool. And I believe there is a link to getting that. If not, you can certainly contact OutBack, and we'd be more than happy to get you that system design tool. All right, I think we may be coming close to the end of our questions. A couple more coming in. Next question I have is, we used the FlexPower 2 systems with battery backup approximately 12 years ago for a multi-purpose safe shelter that looks like it was FEMA approved in lieu of a generator. So the question is, the limitation seems to be batteries. So any advantages to go with higher voltage batteries? That's a good question. There are certainly can be some advantages going with higher voltage batteries. So higher than 24 or 48, we're probably talking 10 times that voltage is kind of what the Tesla Powerwall and some of the other newer batteries on the market are operating at these higher voltage. It does help with efficiency to some degree. The main problem is there just isn't a lot of equipment on the market, both from OutBack and several of our competitors that are strong in this battery-based inverter space. Everybody is for historically what's kind of been safety reasons, 50 volts seems to be kind of the threshold of what's been deemed as to be a safe voltage for people to be working with. That's changing as people are getting together and talking and working on ways to make systems safer. So I think you will see some higher voltages going down the road, but the main limitation today is just that there isn't much equipment that's designed to work with higher battery voltages. So while there may be some advantages, there just isn't the equipment available, but that is changing. Next question, is there any way to limit the output of the FM80 charge controller? Yeah, there's some things you can do there, but basically it's going to be limited to what's required of it. So it's only going to output as much power as needed. So I'm not sure if I'm completely addressing that question, but everybody on this call is always welcome to call into OutBack. Our contact information is on our website, and we can go into some of these questions a little more detail if I'm not addressing them correctly. Right, it looks like I may have addressed most questions. I'm going to take one more quick peek. All right, I believe I have one more question here. Can we power up air conditioners? What size air conditioner can be run with these systems? The answer is yes. It does depend on the air conditioner. The power output, the maximum output as well as the continuous output is specs that we do provide, so you need to check with the air conditioner. I can say with certainty that certainly a lot of the newer air conditioners, particularly the mini split air conditioners, are very practical loads to be powered by inverter systems, and any of our inverters, probably 4, 7, 8 and up, can certainly run a mini split air conditioner. Some certainly window and room air conditioners that operate off of a 120 volt circuit are also very easy to operate with a power system. One thing I keep in mind with an air conditioner is, particularly in very hot, humid environment or climates, it is going to be something that's a high draw that's operating on could be 24 hours a day. So you're going to need to be able to make sure that you have enough energy storage, enough batteries, and a big enough PV array to be able to provide that continuous draw. Get your batteries charged at the same time so that when the sun goes down, that your batteries are fully charged enough to get you through until the sun coming up the next day. So air conditioners, yes, you can power them. You need to be very cognizant of the system design, making sure that the inverter will support it, as well as the other devices that need to run at the same time, and that you've got the energy storage and the PV array to support it. So challenging loads. If you don't need air conditioning, you can certainly get a much smaller system to do the job. But if the customer or the application requires that air conditioning be powered by a renewable energy system, it can be done. The next question I have is, MSRP is excluding the solar array. Is that correct? Yes. So those systems include pretty much everything, and I'll clarify that, except for installation of the system. So if you're an installer, you will obviously need to cover the cost of your installation labor, but it does not include the PV modules or the PV racking. The other piece that is not included are the battery cables that go from the FlexPower power system to the battery bank, and the reason those are not included is those vary based on pretty much every installation. So we do require that the installer figure out where the batteries are going to be located. We highly recommend that those be within 10 feet of the power system. Closer is better, but sometimes that's not practical, and if that's the case, then the cables just need to be sized appropriately. So you will need to provide racking modules and the battery cables from the battery racking to the inverter itself. Next question is, will we ship direct to Puerto Rico? OutBack doesn't sell direct, but our partners, we work through all of the solar distributors and pretty much all of the electrical distributors. They're all doing business and able to, I think for most cases, they will work with you to ship products into Puerto Rico and any other island or any location in the world. In addition, we do have OutBack distributors in the Caribbean as well, and our international sales team can certainly help with that as well. With that, I think we're coming close to the end of our allotted time, and I'm not seeing, I do have one more question. This will be the last question, and then we'll wrap things up. I definitely appreciate everybody who attended today. And the last question is, generator mode, does that protect the system from backfeed? No, but the way the system is wired, all of our systems, they all will protect from a backfeed situation. Generator mode is to help, it widens up the AC input limits of our inverters to accept output or input power from a generator that may not be, as high a quality as utility power, to make sure that the system won't reject power from a generator. So with that, again, I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance today. This webinar will be repeated again at 1 p.m. Pacific this afternoon. So thanks again for your participation and your business if you're currently in OutBack Power, or we'd love to have your business if you're new to OutBack. So everyone have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. Thank you so much.